Hey, life can change in an instant. One minute everything feels normal, and the next someone else's mistake turns your world upside down. That's when you need a team you can count on. NACE Law Group has been standing up for DC families for decades, fighting for neighbors hurt by medical malpractice, wrongful deaths, and serious injuries. They don't just settle quickly or push papers, they dig in, fight hard, and make sure every client gets the justice they deserve. And here's something we love. They're a longtime supporter of CityCast because just like us, they care about this community and the people who call it home. So if you've been hurt or someone you care about has, pick up the phone, call NACE Law Group. They'll stand with you, fight for your family, and make sure your rights are protected. Visit WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com. That's WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com. And from United Healthcare, with a network of over 120 hospitals and nearly 40,000 physicians across the DC region, United Healthcare is proud to provide the care you need when you need it. That's why United Healthcare has been working to make the healthcare system work better for you, making your care more coordinated, more personal, and easier to access. At United Healthcare, your care is non-negotiable. Learn more at uhc.com/Hopkins/FAQs.
Today on CityCast DC. Now that it's fall, we're finally moving out of mosquito season, thank God. And today, we're talking about one of the animal heroes that eats mosquitoes. That's right, the bat. Those cute, furry, flappy flyers. And it turns out DC is actually battier than you might think. Dr. Kelly Russo-Petrick, Associate Professor of Urban Ecology and DC Master Naturalist Coordinator at the University of DC, joins to share everything you need to know about DC's bat population. Today's Wednesday, November 5th. I'm Bridget Todd, and here's what DC is talking about. Kelly, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's get into it because I have kind of a love-hate thing going on with bats. On the one hand, I'm kind of fascinated by them. On the other hand, I don't want them anywhere near me. I don't want to see them or know about them whatsoever. I know that you recently gave a talk all about bats in DC. What are some just top-line fast bat facts that folks should know about bats here in DC?
So there are 8 bat species in DC. And one great thing about bats is that they're really helpful for the environment and to people. For example, bats in DC eat insects, so that helps keeps insects from becoming overpopulated and controls the population of insect pests, which include mosquitoes and also agricultural pests. So, well, we don't really have big farms in DC. We do have small urban farms and community gardens, and those bats eat agricultural pests that negatively impact those.
So it sounds like you're saying bats are actually pretty helpful. They do helpful things for us. They eat bugs for us. I still don't like them. I'm still unnerved by them. Is there any reason to be afraid of bats?
There's not a reason to be afraid of them. I mean, bats will leave you alone as long as you leave them alone. I would avoid handling bats. I would call a wildlife professional if you find a bat in anywhere that needs to be moved. But again, as long as you don't bother them, they won't bother you. They're just doing their thing.
I saw a video of a man who had a bat in his house, and it was the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. They were knocking things over. He was afraid to touch it. I feel like there's a lot of bats where bats ought not be lore of what happens if you go home and there's a bat, or you wake up and there's a bat in your house, or a bat. I'm always irrationally afraid they're going to fly in my hair if I'm out. I don't know if that's a completely irrational fear or what.
So the hair thing is a complete myth. Bats are good at navigating, and they're generally going to not want to go near people, so they're not going to get caught in your hair. So that's not something to worry about. Sometimes they will be in buildings because they will sometimes, for example, roost in attics. And again, that's when you just would call a wildlife professional to help move them. But it's just because they will sometimes roost in buildings. But again, they don't want to bother people and generally just want to be left alone. So
someone once told me that if you ever find a bat in your house, you should go to the emergency room or go to a doctor because they carry rabies and their teeth are very small, so that you could have gotten a bat bite and not know it. Is there any truth to that?
Definitely do that if you've handled the bat. If it's in your house, I would only be concerned if it was in the area that you, for example, if it could have been like in your room while sleeping, but if it's in a sealed off attic, because usually they're going to be like in attics, not in areas that people are often, and you weren't there, then I wouldn't necessarily need to get tested. But definitely if you know you've handled a bat, because they do carry rabies. They do have a negative reputation associated with that, but a lot of that is just because they are very mobile and around people more than some other wild animals that carry rabies, probably because they do nest in buildings. And they are resistant to some diseases, which actually makes them good for researching disease. They're not resistant to rabies, but just the association disease in general. But again, a lot of that is because they're just highly mobile and are around people more, and they have a lot of species and are pretty common, so.
Stories matter at St. Anne's Center, where mothers and children can overcome homelessness and write hopeful new futures. Founded in D.C. in 1860 and chartered by President Lincoln, St. Anne's Center continues to help women and their children today, 165 years on. Now, we invite you for a one-of-a-kind look inside our mission. Visit stanns.org/CityCastDC to watch In Her Words, an exclusive short film highlighting 4 women currently journeying through St. Anne's Center. This 6-minute film explores motherhood, homelessness, and hope through the eyes of the women living the journey. Hear their stories in their words. You can also learn how to support St. Anne's by advocating, donating, or volunteering for the mission. Make a difference this Homelessness Awareness Month. Visit stanns.org/CityCastDC.
And from United Healthcare. At United Healthcare, your access to care is non-negotiable. With a network of more than 120 hospitals and nearly 40,000 physicians across the DC region, United Healthcare is proud to provide you the care you deserve. With open enrollment season here, you can trust that United Healthcare is working to ensure you can access the care you need, when you need, where you need it. Learn more about United Healthcare's commitment to patients at uhc.com/hopkins/FAQs. And from United Healthcare. At United Healthcare, your access to care is non-negotiable. With a network of more than 120 hospitals and nearly 40,000 physicians across the DC region, United Healthcare is proud to provide you the care you deserve. With open enrollment season here, you can trust that United Healthcare is working to ensure that you can access the care you need, when you need, where you need it. Learn more about United Healthcare's commitment to patients at uhc.com/hopkins/FAQs.
Where do bats hang out here in DC? Like, is DC a big bat city?
There are a lot of bats in DC, so I've just started doing research, mostly focused on small urban farms and community gardens of bats in DC. I did record in a couple forested locations as well, and from May to September this year, I did record over 4,000 bat calls of all 8 species in the district. And I know there have been other research done by DOEE and Virginia Tech as well of bats. So they are very common throughout the district. Bats are surprisingly urban tolerant. So most people think of bats in forested areas, which are generally where they're found, but is species specific. So there are some species like the hoary bat tend to be more tolerant of cities and open areas. So some of those you can find like even city areas and more urban areas. Some other species that tend to be more forest dwelling and less tolerant in development, you'd probably find more in forested areas and protected parks.
Wow, who knew that bats were kind of urban creatures? You might see one taken in the metro or like picking it at a happy hour or something. Where does DC rank in terms of battiness? Like other comparable cities, how batty is DC?
I don't know how it ranks compared to other cities. but I do know there are bats in a lot of other major cities. For example, Austin is really famous for having a bridge that there are a million bats that roost under, so that's become a major tourist attraction. I do know there's also been a lot of bat research done in other cities like Chicago. So there's a lot of bats in a surprising amount of cities. So there are bats, especially in a lot of the protected parks. Again, they're in non-protected parks, but there are a lot of bats in Rock Creek. I know there have been research there previously. I also went to a bat banding event in Kingman. I know there's a lot there. I didn't record in Kingman as far as my research. I record a lot of the bats in some of the food forests in DC when I was looking at urban farm sites. There's also a lot of bats near UDC's Lamont Riggs campus. I record a lot of bats there. I've also done bat walks through Tregeron Conservancy and record a lot of calls there as well.
Ooh, just out of curiosity, what does a bat call sound like?
So bat calls are generally going to be, you can't really hear them with just your ears. So I use special acoustic monitors that record in specific frequencies. So generally they're going to be around peaks from 20 to 80 kilohertz. And you can use the frequencies to identify to species, which is what I do for my research to kind of determine what bat species are in the area. So generally you need special acoustic detectors to record them.
How did you become someone who is studying and caring about the bats? It seems like such a niche thing. How did this become your thing?
So I don't just do research on bats now. My area is urban ecology. So I also do research with trees and general urban wildlife. But I got really into bats. I've always thought bats were cool, but I started researching bats during my PhD at Bowling Green State University in Ohio. My supervisor or advisor had a bunch of projects available, and one of them was working, looking at bats in the area and seeing what affects the amount of bat calls and what species are present in the region. And I thought that was really cool and was really interested in bats, so I developed my dissertation around that. And once I got a job at University of District Columbia, I wanted to continue my bat research here because, again, I enjoy researching bats. So I'm just kind of starting to pick it up again in DC.
This is what I mean. They are kind of fascinating. I can see why someone would be drawn to them. When I was a kid, there was a show on called The Wonder Years, and kind of the quirky girl character on the show had a bat as a pet that she kept in a shoebox. And it was sort of meant to be this thing like, oh, fascinating people are very interested and drawn to bats. That really stuck with me. Could you keep a bat as a pet?
No, they do not make good pets. I do not recommend it. They can't be kept as pets. But I had similar experiences where I watched things with, or read books really with bats as a kid. So I don't know if you've heard of Stella Luna by Janelle Cannon. That was like one of my favorite books when I was a tiny child. And also Silverwing by Kenneth Opel when I was slightly older, I think like 4th grade. I was really into that. But those also helped me become interested in bats, just reading bat books as a kid.
So let's say somebody listening also has that same bat interest. If they wanted to spot bats out in the wild, where should they go and what time of day is best for that?
So bats are it's going to be more likely that if you have a recorder, you record the calls and see them. But they're going to be most active from half an hour after sunset to 3 hours after sunset. So that's probably when you're more likely to find them. Again, going to one of the parks, but somewhere where it's more open in one of the parks. So I do bat walks in Tregeron in the summer. So that is something that people can look out for probably starting next summer, because bats are probably less active during this time of year. They're most active from May to September. After September, they're going to start being in hibernation or migrating south. So they're not going to be as active now, but I think especially in the summer during that time period. And I do recommend either looking at the Tregeron bat walks or seeing if there's other bat walks in the area that people might be going in areas where there are bats.
Tell me about these bat walks. If somebody joined one, what could they expect?
So generally in Tregeron, we go to, there's like an open field area where you can see a lot. Sometimes we see bats flying overhead. Because it's nature, you can't really guarantee that you will see or hear anything. But we also have recorders. So the last walk we did in September, we didn't really see many bats, but we actually record a lot of calls. So we'll have an acoustic monitor out. I have my one I use for research. I also have a smaller one that can connect to a phone, and that does automatic ID so people can kind of see what species are present. So that's fun for education. And we do it with a local organization called Capital Nature. So usually one of the walks is just for people in the Master Naturalist program, which is an ecology volunteer certification and education program I run. And then we had one that was combined Master Naturalist in the community and one that was just for the community organized by Tregeron. Capital Nature in the past has also brought like UV lights that we can use to see like sometimes things are bioluminescent under UV lights. So you can see that. And one time they brought a moth sheet. So we also get to look at other nighttime wildlife as well.
That actually sounds like a pretty fun time.
Yeah, it is fun. People seem to really enjoy it. We usually get a pretty good turnout. So
We've talked about this a bit, but let's say that we're dealing with a bats where bats ought not be situation in your home, in your garage, in your attic. What should folks do?
I would call a wildlife professional. Again, if there's like an injured bat, I would call like someone like City Wildlife, some sort of wildlife rehab, or call animal control, just someone that can kind of safely remove the bat from your home. Yeah, I would call a professional, and do not handle any bats especially without gloves. So
How can just everyday citizens help the bat population here in DC?
yeah, so there are a number of things you can do. Of course, like supporting legislation that's protecting habitat, especially forested areas. This is more difficult if you have an apartment, but if you have a house or a little bit of a yard or a community area that has a yard, for example, like a school or park, you can look at installing a bat house or bat box. And I would look at guides for websites like Bat Conservation International has a really good guide on how to install a bat box and basically where to locate it. So that's helpful for bats because it kind of gives them an additional roosting place. And definitely keep your cats indoors, which is helpful for birds as well. Yeah, this is like a constant thing because people think of them as threats to birds, but they do also can go after bats as well. And when it's safe to do so, it could be useful to leave up dead trees because some types of species of bats will roost in them. But again, only when it's safe. I'm also into tree maintenance, so I'm a little torn on that one, but it is good to leave those up because wildlife will use them, again, when it's safe to do so. Also, if anyone here is into caving, definitely clean your cave equipment before and after entering caves, because there is a bat disease called white nose syndrome. It's a fungal disease, and unfortunately, it has killed a lot of bats. It's species specific, so it only affects some species. But it wakes them up during hibernation and also damages their wings. And that can spread between caves from people. So definitely clean cave equipment and avoid entering caves when you don't have permission to do so because bats do roost in there. And definitely like planting native habitat, native trees, or native plants that will attract insects bats feed on, and etc. Is also helpful. So yeah, those are a few things you can do to help bats in DC.
Well, Kelly, thank you for being here, and thank you for being a friend of the bats of DC.
Of course.
That's all for today here on CityCast DC. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend who is batty for bats? They can rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. And if this conversation left you positively batty, then consider becoming a CityCast DC neighbor. You can do that at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with even more news from around the city. Talk to you then.